The Tigers back. It was a bad week sandwiched by two great Sundays. So how do we look now heading into the trade deadline? What about the Lions? How's training camp going? Are they ready for the Hall of Fame game this Thursday? All that and more with this fan who always believes. This is the Motor City Sports Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Motor City Sports Podcast, your home for discussing all things Detroit sports. I'm your host, Lee Mozurek, and as always, I want to thank you all for joining me on this lovely adventure. So, what a day. Tigers game just ended here on Sunday afternoon. As I'm recording this, usually I record the episodes a little earlier in the day and don't get to watch the game live. Today, I decided to wait a little bit to watch today's game and then have some new thoughts afterwards. And I'm glad I did because I got to see a win. So, Sundays seem to be our friends coming out of the All-Star break here. Those are our only two wins so far since the All-Star game. We're going to break that down a little bit. I'll talk about today's game, talk about the week or kind of the time since the All-Star game as a whole, what that's looking like for the team. And then we'll talk about the Lions a little bit as they're getting ready for the Hall of Fame game this week. And then we're going to wrap up kind of tossing around some trade deadline ideas and what the Tigers are looking like they're going to have to do to be serious contenders come playoff time. So that's kind of the plan for today, and I hope you all enjoy it as much as I do. So before we get started, though, I need to remind everyone that today's episode is brought to you by Grosse Pointe Spine Center, where they use non-surgical spinal decompression to treat patients suffering from chronic neck pain, chronic back pain, and sciatica caused by herniated discs, bulging discs, and degenerative disc disease. If you're in the Metro Detroit area and you need some pain relief, call them at 313-332-0388 or visit them online at grossepointespincenter.com. All right, I guess we should get started. So the Tigers, what's going on? They just finished up finally stealing a game from the Blue Jays, winning 10-4 here on Sunday afternoon. And it started out great. I thought we were going to win this game, no problem. Jack Flaherty threw a great game, had 6 innings pitched, no runs, 7 strikeouts, I believe. Just one of the best outings he's had all season at a time we really needed it. I've been saying all along that Jack Flaherty's an animal, and he's one of the reasons why I don't think the Tigers need to consider starting pitching help as we move towards the trade line, which we'll talk about a little later today. Jack Flaherty's great. Jack Flaherty's the man. That's the Jack Flaherty that I know is there, and that's the Jack Flaherty that I think we're going to be able to count on come playoff time. But Jack does his job. Tigers get 3 runs early on in the the third inning. Dylan Dingler, Parker Meadows get on base. Then we get a couple outs, getting nervous. Two outs on the Tigers, 2 runners on. Is this going to be an inning where they don't get those runs in again? Gleyber Torres comes up, hits the 3-run homer, so we get 3 runs. Jack's pitching the way he's pitching. We're up 3-0. I'm thinking we're in pretty good shape. And I got to tell you, before the 8th inning, I kind of thought to myself, well, how good of a game is this? And I looked at the box score and realized Tigers only had 3 hits. Blue Jays had like 7 hits. And so thankfully, one of those hits was a home run for the Tigers. And I'm thinking, man, maybe this isn't the breaking out party I hoped it was. At first, I was thinking, man, a 3-0 win, getting out of here with the win, 2 Sunday wins in a row. This is what we need. This is going to turn the other corner. Kerry Carpenter's back, and I'll talk a little bit more later about the significance of that. But then I thought, man, just 3 hits again. Ugh, that's not the offensive execution I'm looking for. And don't worry, because it's coming. So in the 8th inning, Tigers just went nuts, right? Parker Meadows gets another hit. Javi Baez doubles him in. Gleyber Torres gets an RBI single. Matt Vierling gets another base hit, which I'll talk about him later. He's staying pretty hot. Riley Green gets an RBI single. Torque laces the ball into left field, knocks a run in. Dylan hits the ball into left field. 3-run score because of that. Just offensive explosion. Team goes up 10-0, looking to cruise into the top of the 9th inning with, no concerns at all. Bring in Luke Jackson, who they just picked up, and I think the plan was Chris Fetter gets his hands on Luke Jackson, figures a few things out. He becomes a helpful piece of the puzzle for us as we move down towards the playoffs. And the final stat line's not great, right? I think all 4 runs are going to be credited to him. Didn't look great, really wild, had a hard time controlling that slider and that curveball. Even the strikeout he got really backed up into the right-handed batter. I don't think that's what he wanted it to do. Thankfully, we got a swing and a miss on it. One thing I'll say, though, he got a little ripped off. That first at-bat of the inning, 3-2 count, he threw a strike, called it a ball. That's not the way you want to start your first outing with a new team that you're trying to prove something to, and then the rest of the inning kind of got away from him. So I hope they're not going to give up on him too quickly, that they work with him, see what they can kind of figure out. Maybe he can still be an asset. But we end up, still finish up bringing Dietrich ends. He comes in, gives up a hit, but ends up getting the final out there. So Tigers get away with a nice 10-4 win. So how's the week as a whole look? So I decided to take a peek at all the games since the All-Star game. We're 2-7 now over that stretch. That's why I wanted to wait till today's game so I get more of a big picture of kind of how things went. So we lost the first two games after the All-Star game. Won that Sunday game with Tarek Skubal on the mound. Lost all week. Tarek throws a great game on Saturday night. Comes out, bullpen, unfortunately doesn't keep the lead for him. Offense isn't scoring any runs for him. We end up losing that game as well. But then here, another Sunday game, we get Jack on the mound. Great outing. So 2 wins since the All-Star game. So I'm going to break down the offense and break down the pitching and see what's been going on. So offensively, who have our all-stars been, our new all-stars, I guess you could say. And the kind of the best performance for the last 9 games or so has been Dylan Dingler, 8 for 23, batting 348 on the week. And the funny thing is, during that same stretch, Jake Rogers is 3 for 10, so batting 300. So kind of the two best swingers we've had over the last week and a half have been the catchers. They're doing great. A great week for Torque, batting. He's 10 for 38 since the All-Star game, batting 263 with a couple home runs, quite a few RBIs in there as well. We've got Matt Vierling coming on strong, 7 for 24 since the All-Star game, batting 292, knocking in some runs. I think he's winding up. He's going to get back to being that same Vierling that I always reference. And actually, Benetti referenced it Saturday night too. When I think of Matt Vierling, I always think of him sliding into home plate, jumping up, screaming, covered in dirt. That moment embodied what the Tigers were last year. And on Saturday night, when he got to play that ball off the one hop in center field and throw the runner out at home plate, I kind of thought what Benetti thought that was going to be the thing that got us going. That was going to be the moment that turned the fire on, and we were going to be in good shape. Unfortunately, it didn't happen Saturday night. Maybe it's happened now on Sunday. So those are kind of the offensive things that stand out in a positive way. Unfortunately, while I don't like to be super negative, the offense has obviously struggled since the All-Star game. So Zach McKinstry, one of our All-Stars, 2 for 28 since the All-Star game, batting 071. Jahmai Jones, 2 for 18, batting 111. Riley Green, 6 for 36, batting 167 with 17 more strikeouts since the All-Star game. And I know now in modern baseball, there's a big push towards strikeouts aren't any worse than any other out, right? It's like the old school mentality is got to put the bat in the ball, put the ball in play, good things happen. And now there's been this swing lately to, hey, an out is an out. Who cares? If we have a power hitter, we want him swinging for high OPS. If he strikes out every once in a while, that's going to happen. But Riley Green, I think now is up to 142 strikeouts on the year. Second place or second highest is James Wood with 130. So Riley's striking out at quite the rate. And when he's hitting bombs and if his OPS is up above 800, 900, then the strikeouts don't matter as much. But I think it does get a little scary when we see a 6 for 36 stretch with all the strikeouts, similar to that stretch he had at the beginning of the year when he had like a 4 or 5 game. I think it was like 17 strikeouts in a row. Or there was some crazy number where how many strikeouts and how many games he'd gone in a row without a hit. And then we saw the Riley Green that we love that just got on fire in May and in June. And then we've seen that slow down a bit in July. But everything on this team has slowed down a bit. And I'm the one that keeps saying it's just a bad couple weeks. I firmly believe that. And I'll break that down more in a little bit. And so while it hasn't been the greatest 9 games or so for Riley, I'm not that concerned. Colt Keith also struggling, 3 for 27 over the last 9 games. A couple weeks ago, I was getting really excited with him as the leadoff hitter. He had been doing a great job, I felt like, in that position. Unfortunately, since the All-Star break, he's really cooled off. And so that's where we see we've only got a couple of guys that are really hitting at a nice rate. Like I said, Dylan Dingler and Torque are doing a great job. Matt Vierling's doing a great job. Everyone else really kind of has to pick up the slack, which I'm sure they will. Torque's got a couple home runs since the All-Star game. Jahmai Jones with a couple home runs since the All-Star game as well. And so I think what I've been saying all along, and I'll talk about this later in the show about the trade deadline, is that our players are good enough. Like Benetti keeps saying, this is the same group of guys that got hot last year, made a playoff run. And it's actually an improved group of guys because the team last year didn't have Gleyber Torres. The team last year didn't have a healthy, solid Javi Baez. Now, while Javi's on a bit of a rough stretch here, 4 for 24 since the All-Star game, Javi's had a great year overall. And I'll talk about some ideas that we can do with Javi a little bit later. But so in a way, you could argue this team's a better team than the one that got hot and did so well last year. So that's why I just refuse to believe that the sky is falling and this team's in totally lost and they can't do anything and we need so much help and all that kind of stuff we're hearing. I just don't believe. I just think all of our bad karma, bad stuff came in a 2 to 3 week period where it was real bad. I think it was losing 12 out of 13. Now they've won today, so hopefully this kind of gets them hot again. They still don't have an off day though. They got to travel. They're playing tomorrow. Or sorry, not travel. They're just playing tomorrow. At least they're home, but there's no off day, so they're back tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday game, and then I think Thursday they finally get the off day. So we really got to keep plucking along. But how'd the pitching look over that 9 game stretch or so? Well, we got 2 outings from Tarek Skubal. What would you expect? 12 or almost 13 innings pitched, only 9 hits, only 1 run, and that was that shaky run from 2 starts ago where they pulled them. They brought Tyler Holton in. He threw a ball in the dirt, and then the run scored. That's a tough one to get credited to Skubal. 3 walks, 18 strikeouts over 12 innings. Brings his ERA down to 2.09. Top or best ERA in the American League. Only Paul Skeens has got a better ERA than him. He's also, I think, number 2 in strikeouts, number 1 in strikeouts per 9. So I think all signs point to he'll end up leading the league in ERA and in strikeouts. He's probably not going to get the wins, so he's not going to get the Triple Crown. That could hurt MVP votes. I don't think it'll hurt Cy Young votes. It seems like at this rate, he'll be so dominant, that's still going to be okay. But 2 games in a row, he should have got the win, and he didn't. So he can't do much more than what he's doing. When he left the game both times, he had given up 0 runs and the offense just wasn't scoring. Reese Olson, 1 good outing, 1 bad outing, just over 10 innings, 6 hits, 5 earned runs. Jack would get 1 bad outing, 1 great outing here. Cater Montero, 2 pretty rough innings. It looks like Cater might be gone for a bit. They sent him down to bring up Troy Melton. Looks like he's going to be the new kind of 5th starter there. He had the 1 outing himself, 7 hits, 6 earned runs. Did seem to kind of figure it out in the second half of that start. Casey Mize, 1 outing in the last, week or so. It was a tough outing. 4 innings, 10 hits, 4 earned runs. So hopefully this week Casey gets back on track. Bullpen's been tough to assess over the last 7, 8, 9 games because we've been out of all the games. So they haven't been high leverage situations. So we're down, 11-5, for example, and the bullpen comes in and does well. Does that mean that same guy would have done well if it was an intense moment? But just judging it on the surface, pretty good. Hanafi, super clean week, 4 innings, no earned runs. Herder, super clean week, over 6 innings pitched, no earned runs. Holton, super clean week, 5 appearances, almost 5 innings, no earned runs. Dietrich Enns had a rough outing in there. Chase Lee had a rough outing. Will Vest had a rough outing, which he almost never does. So I guess we'll give him a pass. It was hurtful. Tigers were winning. We thought we had that game won. Will gives up 2. Tommy Canley's had 3 outings, 2 great outings, 1 rough outing. So again, bullpen's been tough to assess because the games have been so nuts. Now, what do I think about the bullpen? I think we're still in good shape. They're trying to make stuff happen, right? Hartlieb and Hernandez were both let go after the last week. Hartlieb had almost no chance. He had 2 outings, 1 good one, 1 bad one. They sent him on his way. They were trying to get something out of Carlos Hernandez, and we talked about that a couple episodes ago. Throws 100 miles an hour, throws a splitter. I think they really thought that Chris Fetter and his team could get that figured out. He had 2 good outings in the last week, but 1 rough outing, and I think they finally decided they'd done all they could, and they sent him on his way as they were trying to make room for other guys. So that's kind of the way the pitching shakes out. But I buried the lead, forgot to mention one more thing with the offense. Kerry Carpenter's back. So while he did not have a great outing today or a good game today, it's his first game back. I understand, might still work through some things. The team was 53-32 when Kerry Carpenter went down. So 21 games above 500. They went 7-14 the next 21 games, and then won today. So to think about how different that lineup looks when Kerry Carpenter's here, and I think that has something to do with the Gleyber Torres home run today. He had Kerry Carpenter batting behind him. So that changes the way Max is going to pitch because he knows Kerry Carpenter's on deck and Kerry Carpenter could do damage. Last thing he wants to do is walk Gleyber Torres and have bases loaded with Kerry Carpenter coming up. So that changes the way teams attack the Tigers lineup now that we have another very strong bat in there. So while Carey didn't, hit 3 home runs himself today, just his presence, I think, made a super positive impact on the team. So I want to break down kind of what I'm always saying about this team is the real deal. This team isn't a bunch of nobodies that aren't going to win games. They've been lucky the whole time. And here's how I'm going to break this down. At the 60 game mark, the team was 39-21. They ended up getting up to 44-24, was I think the first time they went above 20 games above 500. But basically at 60 games, they were basically 20 games above 500. And then they just kind of started to play 500 baseball for a while, and then got really bad the last week to where now they dropped below that 20 games above 500. I think they're 15 games above 500 now. But they were 46-25 at the 71 game mark. So 21 games above 500 after 71 games. So roughly almost a half of the season, just 10 games less than half the season. They were 21 games above 500, but they went on a 35 game stretch of 14-21. And most of that stretch, we had no Kerry Carpenter. So I think that the real team is the one that was 39-21, 44-24, 46-25. That was the real deal. Yeah, are they going to play? If they were 40-20, they're not going to be 80-40 and then 90-45, and they're not going to win 110 games. I understand that. I never thought that was happening, but I thought 100 games, 105 games, that they were really hot. But 100 games I felt was reasonable. 95 games is going to win the division, going to get them in a good spot as far as seeding goes. That's all I think still very much on the table. Yeah, a few teams have jumped over and gotten to 62 wins. Tigers can get hot now, jump those guys again. They still have a 7+ game lead over Cleveland. I think 9 games over Minnesota. They still have the biggest lead is in the division in all of baseball. So I'm not worried. This team's great. This team's in a great position. Again, today, 10 runs scored. I love it. Starting pitching did great. Bullpen struggled, but it was a new guy that might not be a long-term fix. And if he is, maybe that means Chris Fetter figured him out. So as far as the team looks right now, I'm feeling pretty good. I was pretty stressed out on Friday night. I was at the game. I joked they needed a rain out. They needed a day off. They needed to just go play at Dave & Buster's or something for a day just to shake out the bugs. But maybe these mustaches they're all wearing now, maybe that's their version of Dave & Buster's, and we're going to have a new fun team as we move forward the rest. So that's what I'm looking forward to. So that's kind of wrapping up the quick recap of where we're at with the Tigers. What we're going to do after the break is kind of a quick recap of the Lions, what things are looking like right now, how training camp's been going, what we have to look forward to for the Hall of Fame game. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about trade deadline ideas and what the Tigers need to do, or if they need to do anything to stay competitive, to stay legitimate, and continue to be strong going into the playoffs. So that's the plan for after the break. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the Motor City Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Mosierek, and again, thank you for being here with me. In the first segment, we talked about the Tigers' exciting win today, 10-4. Offense really exploded in the bottom half of that 8th inning. Jack Flaherty threw a great game, so I think we're all feeling pretty good going into Sunday night. Now we got the Diamondbacks coming to town this week, and maybe a player switches teams in the middle of that series, and we'll talk about that in the last segment of today's show. But now I want to talk about the Detroit Lions. What's going on with training camp? Lions have the Hall of Fame game this week. So on Thursday, July 31st, busy day. Trade deadline in Major League Baseball, Lions preseason opener, and football. That's coming up soon. So what's kind of been going on with camps? I went through a couple different places online to look up some ideas. And one thing I went to was Tim, who writes for the Detroit Lions on their website, their senior writer. He kind of worked out a few players that were standing out to him at camp. And I took that and I pulled from that the ones that were interesting to me. And so one he talked about was Marcus Davenport playing edge. And I'll just lump that with Aiden Hutchinson also obviously playing edge. So Marcus Davenport, he said that he looks great. His issue's always been health, right? He needs to stay healthy. And we need him to stay healthy because we need that other end to give some relief to Aiden Hutchinson, who looks phenomenal by all accounts. He said before He's not recovering anymore. He's already recovered. He was recovered in the spring. Now he's excited for camp. He has his eyes set on All Pro. I've seen that he's got a chance to win Defensive Player of the Year as well as Comeback Player of the Year. He's looking for Defensive Player of the Year, All Pro, all that going into contract negotiations. So I'm sure he's about as motivated as one can be. So that's kind of what we've got on the outsides of that defensive line. And we'll talk about the interior defensive line a little bit later. Other players that Tim said look great at camp right now, running back Jahmyr Gibbs, he's probably going to explode, right? It looks like he's really clicking with John Morton, the new offensive coordinator. Morton wants to get Jahmyr out in space in the passing game, which makes sense. He's so fast, and he's great inside the tackles too. He'll find that hole and hit it, reminiscent of Barry Sanders. But when you get him out in space and you've got a defender trying to guard him one-on-one when he's got the ball, it's almost not fair to the defenders. So I can see a new offensive coordinator getting pretty excited about that opportunity, and I'm looking forward to see what they're able to cook up. Sticking with the offense, Sam Laporta appears to be becoming a real safety blanket for Jared Goff. And I'll talk more about Jared Goff a little bit later, too. I've been watching that Netflix quarterback series. But I think Laporta is just phenomenal, right? The Lions have a way of kind of drafting a tight end that seems above average, and then they kind of just go away. And that was the deal with Hawkinson. He was great. We traded him away. And then we picked Laporta right up afterwards. And now he's just an absolute monster. Every once in a while, I'll hear someone whisper a potential trade with Laporta to bring something else in, and I just don't like it. I love the skill players the Lions have right now. Those two running backs, those two receivers, and that tight end with that quarterback should not be messed with. You should keep them together as long as possible. They are phenomenal. You want to bring in a new number 3 receiver. You want to keep improving the offensive line. Great. And I get everyone has an end date. Jahmyr Gibbs isn't going to play for 30 years. So at some point we have to move on. But shaking it up for the sake of shaking it up, I don't want to see. The other person that Tim pointed out was looking really good in training camp was Terrion Arnold at cornerback. So Kelvin Shepard, new defensive coordinator, has pointed out that Terrion Arnold's getting better. He's feeling the routes quicker. He's becoming more familiar, more comfortable out there. And I've said before, he was targeted a ton in man-on-man coverage in previous years. And that explains why he had so many, pass interferences last year. And everyone thought, oh my gosh, he's not that good. He's always getting caught for penalties. But I think it's because he was put in a position to have to be penalized more often than most cornerbacks. So I think with another year of experience, he's going to do a great job in that defensive backfield. Other things to note, Alex Anzalone's back to camp. I still think a little bit of the issues contract related. I know he was dealing with the hamstring, and so he's taking his time to get back for that. But it's clear he's not happy with the contract. He's speaking up. He's unhappy that nothing's been figured out. They even asked him, hey, you're back at camp. Does that mean the contract's getting figured out? And he very aggressively said no. And I think that's just a shame. Alex has done a great job for this Lions team. I really hate to see Brad and his team start to get more cutthroat. I understand we've got more guys coming down the pike that we've got to pay, especially Aiden Hutchinson. But Alex Anzalone is a key member of this team. He's the leader of that defense. As much as they want to say it's Jack Campbell's defense, I still feel like it's Alex Anzalone's defense. And I want to see him made whole if we can do that. Coming out of training camp, a couple of the notes according to Sports Illustrated. One's been the physicality, right? There was the day last week where Dan pulled everyone off the field. There were a couple fights. One between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Brian Branch, which I'm not surprised. Brian Branch, even in regular season games, always kind of gets real close to that line of hitting a little too late, playing a little too aggressively, which works out great for us when he's our guy, but probably not when he's hitting one of our guys in practice. So I could see that upsetting Amon-Ra. And then Giovanni Manu and Broderick Martin also got into it. And that kind of led to Dan, I think, pulling everyone off for the day. You like to see the fire. You like to see the competitive. These guys are playing for spots, but you also don't want to see them hurting each other with some unnecessary fight. So it is kind of a line you have to toe. Back to the defensive line. Really looking forward to see who steps up on the interior. Missing Levi and missing Aleem McNeil. There's no one in the middle to push so that the edges can come around and apply more pressure. So someone's going to have to step up to do that until we get Aleem McNeil back, because it's going to be a while until we have him back. Do we need another edge? These edges don't play every single down. So while we do have Marcus Davenport and Aiden Hutchinson, they're going to need a breather here or there. Two of the talks we've heard is bringing back Zadarius Smith. He seems to want to be a Detroit Lion. So that might make sense. And then Matthew Judon has been the other one that's been talked about acquiring in some way. The last thing I've noticed about a lot of talk at training camp has been who gets to start at center. Tate Ratledge, I think they brought in, even though he was a guard, the idea was he could take snaps at center if Frank retired, which he did. Graham Glasgow also is getting some shots there. So you've got Graham Glasgow, who's experienced. He might be more comfortable making the calls he needs to make as a center. But Tate Ratledge is younger. Maybe they can work him into that position. So it seems like they're still kind of trying to figure that out. Which one's going to be our center and which one is not. But they still have some time to figure that out. Maybe we'll get some reps in the Hall of Fame game this week, and we'll kind of get an idea of what they're thinking. Other thing kind of loosely Lions related is I've been watching this the show on Netflix, the quarterback series, where they cover Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow, and of course Jared Goff. And two things about Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow. It's weird, like where I'm at now, Kirk Cousins has been playing phenomenally. So it's so weird to remember that something bad happens and he ends up losing the job and gets benched. Because I'm through the third or fourth episode right now, and he's playing great. So it's just so weird that it goes from that to where apparently so bad where they feel it's worth benching him. Joe Burrow, man, you're just reminded of how great of a year he had last year, and that defense just continued to let him down. So that's real unfortunate as far as Joe Burrow goes. Jared Goff just makes you so proud to have Jared Goff as your quarterback. He's just an animal. I love it. And I really love the episode I just finished was the game against Green Bay when they were in field goal range and decided to go for it on fourth down so they could drain the clock before kicking in. That was one where Jared stumbles, gets the ball off to Demo, who gets the first down. And it was cool to hear the conversation between Dan and Jared. Cool to hear Dan before the game say, we're going for it on every fourth down. The offense has to carry us. Defense is too banged up. Tons of guys were injured. And so we knew it was the offense's job to win that game. When that chance came up, Jared wanted to go for it. Dan said they were going to kick it. And finally, Dan said, all right, forget it. We're going for it. We're going to win this game. And it was really cool to see the relationship that the two of them have. So I've been really enjoying that show. Makes me that much more excited about Jared Goff as our quarterback and about Dan Campbell as our coach. It's been really cool. So I'm excited to finish that off. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Lions on Thursday's episode this week because that will be closer to the Hall of Fame game. So I have a little bit of a better idea of what to expect. So that's going to wrap up kind of our football portion. Other side of the break, we're going to get back to baseball and do a quick chat about the trade deadline, what we can expect to see, what the options are for the Tigers as we head into the next few days. So this is the Motor City Sports Podcast, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Motor City Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Mosrak. In the first segment today, we recapped the last 7, 8, 9 games for the Tigers. In the middle segment today, we talked about the Lions. And now as we wrap up, we're going to go back to the Tigers, talk about the trade deadline. When I was watching Friday and Saturday's games, I was thinking to myself, everyone wants Chris Ilitch and Scott Harris to be super aggressive. They have to do something. We need help. We need help with this team. And at that point, we weren't scoring runs, so the offense was struggling. Everyone's struggling. I just went through what the offense has looked like the last 9 games. There's not a lot of happy points. Starting pitching, other than Tarek Skubal, one good start, one bad start. One good start, one bad start. Bullpen has really struggled the last 3 or 4 weeks. Or the guys that we need to lean on have really struggled. So my question was, what do you expect Scott Harris to do? He can't get 6 new hitters. He can't get 2 new starting pitchers and 2 new relievers. We're going to get a move or two. And so when the team was playing like it was playing for 3 weeks, I think it really limits what Scott Harris is able to do. When the team's playing great and maybe we're one piece away, then it's easy for him to get convinced to go all in on someone. But when we have starters that are putting up 2, 3 hits over the course of 7, 8, 9 games, and we've got starting pitchers that are not getting out of the 3rd inning, it's hard for him to say, yeah, I'm going to trade the farm and bring in Eugenio Suarez because that's the only piece we're missing. And so what I said Friday, Saturday, and what I even said on previous podcasts was the guys we have right now are good enough, and they just need to play like it. We've seen them play like it. I talked about it earlier in today's episode. Basically won 40 out of the first 60 games. They were 21 games above 500 at the 70-ish game mark. So they're that good. They can be that good. They just played really bad for 3 weeks. So we need them to figure out quickly how to get back to playing like the team that they played like in the first 70 games so that Scott and Chris and AJ can more better assess the team and figure out what the needs are, because the solution is not trading for 8 guys in the next 4 days. So what can we do? So I went to a couple of different sites today and looked. MLB.com ranked so Eugenio Suarez is the big guy that everyone wants, right? He's kind of the belle of the ball. But the Yankees already moved for a 3rd baseman, so that takes one of the suitors out. They listed the Tigers as the number 6 most team in need of getting Suarez. So there are 5 teams above them. And the reason they said that, I think, is because the Tigers have played so well without him. We have an all-star third baseman in reality. So do we really need it? But the reason we need him is because Javi, Zach, Glaber, and Dylan Dingler, according to him, had cooled off over the last couple of weeks. Now, I will say in the last week, Dylan Dingler's been great. So saying he's cooled off is probably not accurate. Glaber Torres hits a home run today's game, so he might be heating up now. But since June 25th, so again, basically July, that's been terrible. Since June 25th, they're only scoring 3.8 runs a game, which is the 4th fewest in all of baseball. The 5th worst weighted runs accounted for at 79 at third base. So third base is just not producing runs relative to the rest of the league. Even though we love Zach, I can see the argument you made like, no, we need somebody else there and Zach can move around. One of the ideas I had was moving Javi back to center field because Javi just played better when he played in center field. He seemed like he was enjoying baseball more, and that was coming out in his offensive production. Move Zach over to short, put Vierling back to third, which he played down the stretch last year. Great. And if we get a new third baseman, okay, cool, put him there, and then Vierling can kind of play wherever. But I thought that might be able to kind of shake things up and get Javi back to producing at the way he was producing in May and June when he was phenomenal. Really in May, I think. I looked at CBS Sports and they went through kind of the 3 biggest gets for the Tigers come the trade deadline, and it was not the most exciting option. So no offense to these 3 gentlemen who might become Detroit Tigers in the next week, but Reed Detmers was one for Angels relief pitcher who hasn't been great this year, an ERA over 4, but he can get swing and miss. And that's something the Tigers bullpen struggles with. Really low walk rate, but a really low whiff rate. So we need guys that can get swing and miss, especially as we get into the playoffs. And the idea is if Chris Fetter and his team can get their hands on Reed, they can get him to pitch a little bit better, bring that ERA down, and be something that could be a really good back end of the bullpen guy. Second idea they had was Willie Castro from the Twins. Kind of plays all over. Almost another Zach McKinstry. I think the only 2 positions he hasn't played in the field are first base and catcher. So he plays the rest of the infield, all the outfield. Batting 257, 10 home runs, is a switch hitter, hits left-handed pitching really well, which is a kind of a kryptonite for the Tigers because 3 of our best hitters, Colt Keith, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green. So when we face left-handed pitching, we're in a bit of a tough jam. And so bringing in a Willie Castro that can switch around to the right-handed side and hit left-handed pitching well might be helpful. We can kind of move him around wherever we need him. I think he's been playing mostly second base for the Twins. He's obviously not going to play second base for the Tigers, but he can move somewhere else. The third one they had was Zach Little, a Rays starting pitcher, roughly a 3.5 ERA. The idea there is he's someone we could use as a number 5 starter because that number 5 spot's kind of been the Montero spot, or now we're kind of moving different guys around. All that Jackson Joby's been out. Top 4 pretty well secure, but that 5th starter we need in the regular season still is a hole. Maybe getting a guy to fill that. And Zach Little has experience out of the bullpen. So the idea being he could be our 5th starter as we get through September. Once we get to October, move him into the relief role, especially if we need someone to kind of pitch a few extra innings in the middle of a game somewhere. That could be an opportunity for the Tigers. So that's kind of what the experts, so to speak, are saying. What do I think is going to happen? I think they're going to make a move for a middle relief pitcher, meaning they're not getting Class A. They're not getting someone's closer, I don't think. I don't think that they're going to be willing to give up what is necessary. I almost think the Tigers' deep farm system is going to hurt them because I think every other team is going to see Max Clark and McGonigal and all these guys and think, hey, you want our guy? We want them. And there's no way Scott Harris is giving them up. So I think the other teams might look at the Tigers as being unreasonable and it not working. So that I think is going to make it difficult for Scott Harris to make trades. So I don't think the big name, stud relief pitchers that are closers that are racking up saves are going to come. I don't think we're getting someone to replace Will Vest. I think the hope is that our guys that are injured get healthy. Alex Lane comes back. Jason Foley comes back. Those guys that are banged up, Ty Madden even could come back. Sawyer Gibson-Long comes back. All these guys that we have that are injured. Alex Cobb, maybe his hip gets under control. He comes back. He can start. And that gives us more flexibility. So I think they're more so leaning on the guys that are already in the system getting healthy. And that's going to be like acquiring new talent. But that being said, I think they'll add a relief pitcher. And I do think they're going to add a bat. I do not think they're going to pull the trigger on Eugenio Suarez. I think if the last 13 games had been like 9-4, and we were really extending our lead and we were looking like, oh, we're going to the World Series, baby. Maybe he takes the swing and brings in that one more big bat to help get us over the next hurdle. But I think us going 1-12 over a 13-game stretch there, I think maybe made Scott a little nervous that he's so set on long-term health of this team, keeping our young farm system there and bringing those guys up into the fold down the road. My thought is we've got Tarek Skubal for another year and a half. We really need to win a World Series the next year and a half. I think it's crazy just to assume the next batch is going to be as good. That's not realistic. So if getting a big bat is an option, I'd like to see them do it again. I'm not looking to take anyone's job. I love the Detroit Tigers we have now. I love the team. I don't want to see any of them lose their jobs. But the last week and a half has shown us we need another big bat. We need someone that can help bust us out of a slump when it's going on. And so if that's a Suarez or whoever that is that we can stick in somewhere and then move the other guys around, that might be a great idea. But what do I think is going to happen? I think they're going to play it safe, get a new reliever on the team through a small trade, maybe one more bat that can play a couple different positions. I don't think we're getting the big name guys in this trade deadline, but that might not be what we need. So we might be okay. Scott Harris might know what he's doing, and I'm willing to put my trust in him. I'm really willing to put my trust into AJ Hinch. So I think that he's going to keep us in a good spot, and whatever pieces he has to work with, he's going to make the most of it. So that kind of wraps up what I'm thinking for trade deadline. That wraps up really what we're going to talk about today at all. So it kind of wraps up the podcast. I wanted to go through a deep dive of the Tigers week, which we did. I think we're going to bounce back. I was kind of excited last Sunday that maybe that would springboard us. This needed another week. I think we're going to play Arizona tough. They seem to be sellers right now. I think the Tigers will have a good couple of days here, get a day off finally, go on the road, and then keep things going in the right direction. It'll be interesting to see what the Tigers do as far as trade. So we'll be back here with the podcast on Thursday morning. So that'll be right up next to the trade deadline. So we'll see if over the next few days Tigers do anything. And we'll probably have some more insight as to what the Lions are going to do for Thursday night's Hall of Fame game. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Before we say goodbye, though, I want to remind everyone to find us on Instagram, Motor City Sports Podcast. Find us on Twitter /X/whatever, Motown Sports Pod. Then YouTube as well, Motor City Sports Podcast. So wherever you're listening, find us, give us 5 stars, give us a subscribe, share it with your friends. That's how we get this show to grow. So again, thanks everyone for being here today. We'll be back on Thursday for another episode of the Motor City Sports Podcast. Thanks, guys.